Washington Journal continues.
Welcome back to Washington Journal. We're joined now by Representative Don Bacon, Republican of Nebraska, and he sits on the Armed Services Committee. Congressman, welcome to the program.
It's great to be back on.
How will you vote on that 7-week CR that the Republicans are proposing? And it looks like there is a vote tomorrow, or...
That's what it's scheduled for tomorrow.
That's the schedule, okay. How are you going to vote?
I'll vote yes. I don't want a government shutdown. I don't like continuing spending. We're still working really off of Biden's budget from last year with these CRs, but it's better than a shutdown. And I think it gives us time through November to work on an actual budget, and we should modify the current spending with the current priorities that we have. But in the meantime, we need a little more time to do that. And we've passed a lot of appropriations bills at the House and the Senate. We got to put them together and reconcile them, and so that's the next task. But I don't want a government shutdown, and I think a clean CR that puts a little more money into security is a good bill to vote for.
What happens if there is a government shutdown? Why do you think it's not a good idea?
Well, government shutdowns are, I just think it's poor governance, and you're sending all these people home. Some people aren't getting paid, right? And for example, the military, unless we do a fix to it, they won't get paid. So it's just not smart. I don't think continuing resolutions are smart either. But if you look at the lesser of the two evils, I'd rather do a CR through November than have a shutdown. And by the way, I've been a part of the party that has done shutdowns in the past. Like in 2020, whatever party shuts down government loses on this. And so I think our Democrat colleagues should say they will be blamed for a shutdown if 99% of the Republicans vote yes and 100% of them vote no.
You do think that the Democrats would be blamed for this?
Yes. If they overwhelmingly vote to not fund the government, yes. Now, I don't know if we'll get 100% of Republicans, but we'll see.
Now, Democrats are asking for an extension to the ACA enhanced premium tax credits. They're saying that people will, if we lose that, which expires at the end of the year, then healthcare will become too expensive and people will lose their healthcare.
I think there's a compromise position in here on this. So let's go backwards. These tax credits weren't there when Obamacare was first passed. These tax credits were added during COVID, and they cost a lot of money. But just to take them out, just pull the plug on them, folks will see their premiums go up. So I suggest that maybe step them down. If you earn over $150,000, the credits go down at 300 or 200. They go down further and stagger them down. But I don't think you can just pull the plug either. And so I think there's grounds for us to compromise with the Democrats on this and find a middle ground. We could do this for the November bill, though, by the way. It doesn't have to be done right now.
President Trump has said that he will investigate, and he's promising retribution to critics of Charlie Kirk and left-wing groups. And Attorney General Pam Bondi has said, had made remarks about hate speech being prosecuted. She has since walked that back. What are your thoughts on retribution investigations of groups that have speech that, and I understand crossing the line into inciting violence and calling for violence is something different. But what are your thoughts on all this?
Well, some of the speech has been shameful. I don't think government should be in the business of retribution on hate speech or shameful speech. I do think you and I, though, have the right to say, shame on you. I'm not going to listen to you anymore. And we can call them out. But I think it's different, though, when government's promising retribution on free speech. I don't think it's right. We have a First Amendment, and I think Pam Bondi did walk back her comments, and her comments were wrong. Hate speech is not a crime. It should be shameful. And we should say, hey, it's not. We don't accept it. We reject it as a society. But we don't have laws that go against that. We don't fine people. We don't, prosecute based on that. And I think the president should know too that he should be higher than that and better and bigger. I wish he spoke to our better angels in these situations. As I mentioned, he's a populist, so he generates anger, motivates him, and what he talks about. But I wish we had a more unifying message here.
What do you think the message should have been? What would you have wanted to hear President Trump say right after that assassination?
Well, we should realize there have been Democrats murdered. In Minneapolis, we had the governor from Pennsylvania, a Democrat was a victim of arson from an anti-Semitic person. And then we've had Republicans murdered. This is a problem that affects all of us, and it's an evil in our society right now. And instead of pointing the finger at different political spectrums, I think we'd be better saying, hey, this is all wrong. And we're all victims of this. I have a restraining order on someone back home. Most everybody I know in Congress has had threats where they've had to have police protection. And so
including yourself.
Including myself. And so this is not a Republican or Democrat issue. This is an American issue that we should be unified on and
Who do you
oppose.
blame for this?
Well, it's real easy to try point fingers and say, okay, this is all the Democrats' fault, or this is all the Republicans' fault. And you see it. And I think some of the speech is over the top. When the Democrats are calling us Nazis and fascists, I think most people see through that and say, okay, that's just political talk. But there's like that one fraction of our society that incites them to and gets them radicalized. Now, ultimately, I blame the person who does the murders. I don't want to blame, I don't blame Nancy Pelosi for what this guy did to Charlie Kirk. I mean, in the end, it was the murderer's fault. We should ultimately hold that person accountable. And he will be held accountable. He'll be open to the death penalty, potentially here. But I think we could be more unifying and quit blaming each other. And then you heard what happened with Kimmel. I think it would have been better just to shame him because he was trying to say he was a MAGA guy, this killer. Well, he had Republican parents, but he was actually radicalized on the left. So what he said was not true. But just to cancel a whole show over that, I don't know. People have a right to listen to what they want. If they don't like it, don't listen to them, right? But I get a little worried about the cancel culture that we have. And it used to be on the right. Now we're seeing it, the right doing it to the left. We've been on the receiving end of this a lot in the past.
So what do you think about social media companies? And is there something that can be done without infringing on free speech?
Well, I think these algorithms that push certain things in your screen, I get a lot of stuff from people that I don't even want to read, right? I mean, I follow 500 people on Twitter, roughly. I get thousands of other stuff that I don't want, don't ask for, and I wish I would just get the 500 or whatever they post, right? And see, these algorithms are intended to push the discussion, more clicks, and they know sort of what I like, so you see more things that I like, but it also pushes people farther in their corner. So why can't we just have social media? I just want to read what the people that I'm friends with. I don't want to read.
Is there a role for Congress in trying to get that?
There could be, but I would rather push the social media companies to modify their behavior more than just legislate it. So we could maybe get them at the table.
You can make more money if you push people to the edges.
Yeah, and that's right. They're driving up. They're trying to drive up advertising and things like that. But it's actually very toxic. I mean, I find myself last night when I got back from a dinner I was at, an interview I did, I'm reading on there, and it's just ugly stuff that's on there. And it's people pointing their fingers at, okay, all the Democrats are bad and all the Republicans are bad. And, and people
not just bad. We're hearing the word evil a lot on this program.
Like on our side, it's, we're being called Nazis, fascists, and that's over the top talk too. But I'm not one to say it's just them doing it. I see both sides pandering to the most angry people in our parties, and a lot of cable TV is based on this too. Just making, having that segment over here, angry as all, and that's who's tuned in, and they're just throwing gas on the fire. And I choose not to watch that stuff.
Just stick with C-SPAN. You'll be fine.
You're very good.
We will take your calls for Representative Don Bacon of Nebraska. He's a Republican. You can give us a call on our lines by party. So Democrats are on 202-748-8000, Republicans 202-748-8001, and Independents 202-748-8002. Switching topics, a Politico headline: First House Republican signs on to effort to force Russia sanctions vote. That's you. Tell us about that.
I think independent, free Ukraine is our national security interest. It's very clear that Russia is the invader. They're trying to make Ukraine a vassal state or a slave state, and the Ukrainian people don't want it. They've lived for centuries under Russian dominance, and millions were murdered by the Russians, and so they want their independence. And it's clear to me that if Ukraine falls, Moldova will be next, probably Georgia. Joe Petraeus recently said that Putin will invade the Baltics, even though they're NATO countries, and he's going to test our resolve. This is what we're looking at, and it's very important that we stand by Ukraine with the weapons they need and sanctions against Russia to maintain their independence. And we got to remember, they're a democracy. They want free markets. They want rule of law. They want to be part of the EU. They would love to be part of NATO. And so I find the president's antics on this wrong. He's failed in this area. I support him on Iran. There's other things I think he's done well. When it comes to Ukraine, he's been a failure thus far. And my job is to push him to do the right thing. And so I want him to do secondary sanctions on Russia. And we should be sending high-end weapons to Ukraine. And right now we're putting rules of engagement on them, just like Joe Biden did, making it very hard for them to use our weapons to target Russian military targets in Russia that are being used to attack Ukraine. We criticized Biden for doing it, and actually President Trump criticized Biden for doing this. Now his own administration is doing it. And so I'm pushing them to do the right thing.
Now, Russia has been under sanctions since 2022 when they invaded
Pretty weak
Ukraine.
sanctions, I would say. But go ahead.
I was just going to say, Putin's actions have not changed. His behavior has not changed.
It's not, but what's not being sanctioned is China and India that's propping up their economy. So I just had a briefing yesterday. China economically is propping up Putin in a significant way and also giving him a lot of the military technology that he's using to bomb Ukraine with. And so China should pay for that. And also India is a huge middleman in their oil and gas industry, sending Russian gas and helping further prop up the Russia's war economy. So what we're looking at here is secondary sanctions on people who are doing business with Russia.
You said that you believe that President Trump has failed in his Russia.
He's failing.
Sorry, failing.
Yeah.
That is a distinction. Thank you. In dealing with Russia, how would you rate his defense team, the people around the president?
Not good. He has a undersecretary for policy that has a 1930s worldview, and it failed us then. It will fail us now. So
This is Elbridge Colby.
Okay, since you mentioned his name, yes. But no, he has a view that we should withdraw out of NATO, or at least really minimize our involvement in NATO. So pulling out of Europe. He's communicated to the Baltics that he would like to pull our financial support, our training, our presence in the Baltics, which is a no-go in Congress. That is we just voted on it. It was 100% support of the Baltics. So he is way out of step with Congress on this. He's also talking about minimizing our involvement in Asia with China and Taiwan. And so he's talking about his whole goal is homeland security, defending the homeland. It's a 1930s foreign policy. It failed us in 1938, 39, and 40, and will fail us now. And so I am not a fan of the Undersecretary of Policy. He should be out.
Let's talk to callers. We'll start with Gina in Decatur, Alabama, Republican. Hello, Gina.
Hi, Congressman Bacon. I'd like to thank you from the 5th District of Alabama, on behalf of Dale Strong, I guess, for giving us Space Command. But I have two questions for you. Number one, the NDAA is being held up and going to conference or something. The Senate hasn't voted on it yet, nor the Veterans Affairs bills. And I'm just wondering if y'all are going to get on it to make sure that the soldiers get paid and that VA doesn't get behind on claims. And thank you, and have a blessed day.
So, by the way, Dale Strong's a great representative for you. He's a great gentleman, so I love serving with him. We've passed the NDAA out of the House and the appropriations bill. So on the House side, we've moved along real well. It appears to me the Senate will not pass their NDAA. They're going to take our bill and maybe modify it. But I believe that the Senate and the House are very serious about getting a final bill out of Congress to the president for our defense and our veterans. And I don't mind if the Senate wants to take our bill and modify it. That's maybe better than them doing their own bill and be way apart. So if we're working from our bill and they're tweaking it, then we'll have to vote on it again with the changes. That's all right. But I believe we'll get this defense bill done. We've done it. We've never missed a year. It is the most bipartisan thing we do in Congress. When it passed out of committee, we only had 2 Democrats vote against it. The other roughly 25 or so voted for it. And so it's a very bipartisan process. I believe the Senate will get this done out of the Senate as well. And the second most bipartisan thing is our veterans here. So defense and veterans are what unifies Democrats, Republicans in the Congress, and I know that we'll have a good veterans bill as well. Mike Boss is the chairman of the Veterans Committee. He's outstanding on this. He's a Marine veteran in his own right, and he's a great leader, and we'll get this done.
She mentioned the moving of Space Command to Alabama from Colorado. Were you in support of that move?
Well, I was opposed when President Biden moved it from Alabama to Colorado. We had a process. By the way, Omaha came in second in front of Colorado in the initial study of where to move Space Command. And we worked hard in Omaha to bring that to our city. And we would have loved to have had them. But the outside group, or the people who studied it, and they rank ordered all the, do you have the right hospitals? Do you have the right people that could fill these jobs? What's the schools like? And they look at all these things. Alabama came in first. Omaha came in second. Colorado came in third. And so that was the plan, was to put Alabama along. Then President Biden, for political reasons, moved it to Colorado. I don't think that was right. And I hate that we're jerking our people back and forth. I don't like moving from Colorado to Alabama. But frankly, Alabama won this competition, and it's the right thing.
Here's Ronald in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, Democrat. Good morning, Ronald.
Good morning. Mr. Bacon, I'm a Democrat long life, and once again, I see that you're doing a good job of talking, both sides, how evil is evil and, whatever. But I want to know how you vote with Mr. Trump. You vote 100% on all his bills that he puts forward, but then you say there's some things you don't like about it. You shouldn't do this, shouldn't do that, but you don't put no restrictions on him by voting no. Well, you should do the same thing you do with Russia, put sanctions on him if he's not meeting your needs.
The problem is he doesn't have the right facts. I have not voted 100% with him. So there's, in fact, because I have voted differently. He tried to primary me in 2022, came out to Nebraska, campaigned against me, and so what the caller said is just not the case. Now, I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative. I'm a Ronald Reagan conservative. I'm not a Democrat guy on most policies. I believe in federalism. I believe in the old Republican views of free trade, peace through strength, strong alliances, pro-life, pro-family, pro-faith. So I'm a traditional Republican in that regard. So the callers think I should be voting with the Democrats. I'm just not there. But I'm not with President Trump on some of these things. I think he's wrong on Ukraine. And I think we're making some push now on tariffs to regain this authority back to the House. So I've been pushing, I'm working with our leadership. They're trying to stop the Democrats from intervening on the tariffs. And I say, okay, but what are you doing? We have a subcommittee that's supposed to be in charge of trade. We should be putting out policy on the House side. So we're going to do that. I think I pushed our guys to go the right way without being dictated on the Democrat side what we're doing. I get it. They don't want to have the Democrats telling them what to do. But we should have a position. And I'll give you one that's common sense. Why are we doing tariffs on coffee? We don't grow any coffee. But we got like 20% tariffs depending on the country. Brazil, even more. We don't make any coffee, so coffee prices are up 21% right now in 2 months. I think it's a dumb policy. This is something that maybe we could fix right out of the House. So I'm pushing our guys, let us do our thing on tariffs, what we think's right, and let's get in the mix. Let's just not take the president's dictates on this.
On that subject, Martin from Louisville, Kentucky says, ask Don Bacon about the impact of tariffs on Nebraska farmers and ranchers.
Well, we've gone from being an export state for agriculture 5 years ago, and right now we have a record deficit in agriculture when it comes to our imports versus exports. And not all of this is on President Trump. Some of this is also on President Biden, who had 0 trade deals in his presidency. The only president since Jimmy Carter to have 0 agreements on trade. But tariffs hurt us. China just recently bought a lot of soybeans. They didn't buy them from us. They bought it from Brazil, right? And so we're losing our export markets in agriculture. Tariffs are a part of it. They're not helping. Now, beyond that, I just heard yesterday that we have a combine manufacturer making combines, And all the combines that we would sell to Canada, they're going to move that whole manufacturing line to Europe because of tariffs. Because for us to sell combines to Canada right now, the tariffs make them non-competitive. So they're going to move all this manufacturing to Europe to make combines to sell to Canada. That's hundreds of jobs. We heard yesterday John Deere is laying off hundreds of people in Iowa. So I'm a free market guy. You want fair trade, I get that, but free trade is our ultimate goal. And the president's been on record since the 1980s of supporting tariffs. I think most Republicans know they don't work. We learned in the 1930s, when it made our depression worse by doing tariffs, that, you know.
What about the use of tariffs as a negotiating tool and even as a foreign policy tool?
I think there's a place for that, but the Constitution gives that to Congress. So how this should have worked is the president should come to us and say, hey, I want to do tariffs on China for these 3 reasons. Draft a bill, we pass it, and then we debate it, and we pass it out of Congress. That's how it's supposed to work. It was never intended for the president just to do, okay, today we're doing tariffs on you, we're putting tariffs on you, and the next, okay, we're going to lower yours down. The founding fathers never intended the president to have this power. But we've also learned from an economic sake, I'm a Milton Friedman fan, tariffs are not good on American consumers. And as I mentioned, we're paying 21% more for coffee right now in 2 months. And I don't think that's helpful. I don't think that's not a Republican conservative position. Now, I find it interesting, this was more of a Democrat policy position in the 70s and 80s that the president is extolling, is a 1930s position of the Republicans. But since World War II, we were a free trade party. And I haven't changed. So, but I want us to work proactively in the House for our own trade policy. And that's what I was debating with the leadership this week on the floor. And I got a commitment. We're going to generate policy out of our subcommittee. Adrian Smith's the chairman. I trust him. He's a great friend. I know he has a good heart on this. Let's come up with smart policies out of the House on tariffs, pass them, and be our own force.
All right, in Arlington, Virginia, on the independent line, John, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Representative. In recent days, I've been happy to hear clear statements on CNN from political leaders against political violence. I believe we all have the duty to discourage political violence, and our elected leaders are especially responsible for that. And quite frankly, I believe it comes before their duty to make political points. That goes left, right, Republican, Democrat, House, Senate. I'm upset to hear about proposals for additional congressional security using our tax money. Really seems like it would just encourage more of the bad behavior that foments political violence. So I'm curious what the representative thinks.
Well, I appreciate the money that's been provided already for our home security. So I was able to. I still had to pay some out of my own pocket, don't get me wrong, but with some of the help they gave me allowed me to have a pretty good security system for my home. And I think a lot of us took advantage of that. So there's some areas that make sense. I think you wouldn't be able to spend enough to give us strong security. I mean, it's just we're vulnerable, and we're going to remain vulnerable to a degree. Now, most of the money that we're talking about spending on the CR is going to go to the judges. Our judges are being threatened all the time right now. So we're trying to improve a little more emphasis on supporting our judiciary branch with some of the same security that we have for our homes and things like that. So the $30 million that we're suggesting, that's not a whole lot, by the way, in the big scheme of things, but that money is going to be, a lot of it's going to be directed towards judges and the judiciary.
Do you think that political climate and that fear that lawmakers are feeling could have a chilling effect on who's willing to run for office, who's willing to, once they're in office, what they're willing to say in public, or how they're willing to vote even?
Yeah, I've talked to some members, and like their spouses are done. They don't want to have a part of this because they don't want to live in fear. They don't want their kids being threatened. They're worried about their kids walking to school and potentially being targeted. So there is a bad effect on this. Now, I'm a Christian. I'm a man of faith. I just know I'm in God's hands, and there's a great verse in the Bible that I haven't forgotten. I remember it in Iraq every day when I served in the Air Force with General Petraeus. Don't fear man who can take your life but not your soul. So I sort of cover myself with faith in this, but we've done some appropriate security things too, you know, and I appreciate some of the tools the House has given all the members for their home security and some cyber security that they've also done. They were also, but I don't think there's enough money to give us security guards or security people. We do with the top 5 members of the House, but we can't do that for 435 people. That's, you know, and then you got to do shifts. It would be
on the Republican line
too much.
In Vail, Arizona. RJ, you're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, C-SPAN. Thank you for taking my call. Hello, Congressman. I just want to give you kudos for being a staunch supporter of the LEOSA reform bill. And I know you've pushed it and had it passed in the Congress, I think, in the last 4 sessions or 3 sessions. But I understand it's passed again in May, H.R. 2243, and now it's languishing in the Senate with Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana. I think it's Senate Bill 679. Any inside track on what's going on over there with the Senate on getting that LEOSA reform passed?
Well, thank you very much for bringing this up. So when I went to my county sheriffs and our local police, go, what is your top priority? How can I help you? They all said LEOSA, which is the Law Enforcement Safety Officers Act or something like that. But what it does, it says if you're an off-duty policeman, that you can continue carrying your gun. If you're a retired policeman and you maintain your gun qualifications that are the qualifications required by wherever you came out of, and you maintain those qualifications, that you can carry your gun as a retiree. And why is this important? Well, if you're at a theater, just hypothetically, and somebody, a shooter starts, you know, making himself known, who do you want near you? I would like to have a retired cop or an off-duty cop that knows how to take action and knows how to respond. And so I think it's a safety tool that we could have. And I don't have any problem with retired policemen or off-duty cops carrying a weapon in this environment that we're in. Now, the problem is many of the Democrats don't want the off-duty cops to be able to carry. And I think this is an area where I think they've gone too far on the gun debate, where like any gun rule, and I'm not saying all of them, but too many of them. So I don't know that we have 7 Democrats in the Senate right now to get us to 60 that will support off-duty cops carrying a weapon. And that's what's grinding this to a halt in the Senate.
In Seattle, Washington, Trish, a line for Democrats. Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, Mimi. Don, hey, listen, 3 points here. I'm only making a half a pot of coffee a day now that the coffee prices have gone up. So thanks for that.
We got some free coffee here in C-SPAN.
Yeah,
only for our guests.
Seattle, Washington. That's not funny. So I'd like to ask you about, on September 3rd, you released you said you voted today to release the Epstein files. Well, actually, sir, that is not an effective tool. For just a little background, your tweet apparently referred to the House passage of H.R. Resolution 589, a simple resolution urging the DOJ to publicly release Epstein-related records. Important context: House resolutions do not create binding law. They express the chamber's opinion and don't go to the president. So H.R. 589 does not in itself enforce any disclosure. If you really want to make a difference, why aren't you supporting the Macy Khanna discharge petition to bring up the Epstein Files Transparency Act? The petition, number 9, seeks to pull H.R. 581 to the floor. Its text would attach a substitute bill mandating release on a timetable with limited redactions. A discharge position.
Okay, Trish, I think we got your point on the Epstein files, your response.
I find it interesting, a lot of the Democrats who are focused on this, I bet you not a single one ever asked Joe Biden to release all these records who had them beforehand. So this has really become just a political theater for a lot of these folks. What we did, we told our Oversight Committee and Judiciary Committee, use your subpoena power and get all the documents from not just the executive branch, where we can get them even in the judiciary and beyond. And we're getting them already. We're already getting, we found the birthday card. This was not because of the discharge petition. This is because our Republican-led committees are subpoenaing this material, and
And
we're
the Wall
getting it.
Street Journal had
Yeah.
already made that public.
But they didn't have the card. We got the card, and who published it? It was members of Congress who put the actual card out. We read the story about it. You're right. And so I think we're doing an effective. We're letting Jamie Comer, excuse me. He's the chairman. He is dedicated and getting all this material. He's the chairman. He has the subpoena power. Let's do it. Now, what the caller is recommending, she wants us to pass this discharge petition. Okay, so now we passed it out of the House. What's next? Okay, you got to get the Senate to also pass it, and the president's going to sign it. This will take months, probably, for it to be done. What we're doing is we're taking action now. And so, I do find it ironic. A lot of these folks who were calling our office and said, "Hey, can you show us where you asked Joe Biden to do this?" It's been political theater for a lot of these folks. The victims deserve to have this done. Chairman Comer is doing it.
I want to get one more call in. I know you need to leave, but this is Ryan in Tavernier, Florida, independent line. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning to you both. First off, I'd just like to thank you, Representative Bacon. I've appreciated your support for Ukraine, where a lot of the Republicans, I think, have seemed to falter on this. So for background on my question, I grew up in a Republican household, and I currently identify as independent. I feel like the Republican Party has sort of abandoned the values that I grew up with, and you've been talking about this during this interview. And I was just wondering, do you see the Republican Party going back to the party of Reagan, like that you talk about, or is it just going to be stuck in this form of?
Well, I think it's a great question. It's a great question. I'm going to not run again. I have 10 years in, and every 2-year election cycle, it's time to do something new. But I'm going to be dedicated to advocating for what I consider Reagan Republicanism values in our party. And I'm going to support candidates for president that I like. We have them out there. Brian Kemp, I think he reflects the values of the traditional conservatism that I embrace. Glenn Youngkin from Virginia, a great guy that extols the old Republican values that I have embraced since I was 13. Nikki Haley. So I plan on getting involved, for the next presidential race, and we're going to have a debate. There's going to be post-Trump. There will be a debate. Where do we want to take the party? I have a hard time taking serious any Republican who is not supportive of Ukraine or is somewhat sympathetic to the Russian efforts here. That doesn't see clearly that what Russia's doing is wrong and immoral. And there's some Republicans out there that have a hard time saying that. Well, I don't want you in the White House if you can't do that, right? And I believe we should go back to a free trade mindset. It provides the best value at the best price in the most efficient manner possible, and it's great for American consumers. And so I look forward to we're going to have this debate in the post-Trump or going into the next presidential race. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I know I'm going to be in the fight.
All right. That's Representative Don Bacon, Republican of Nebraska, member of the Armed Services Committee. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.